Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, the House voted last night to end normal trade relations with Russia and Belarus. The bill now heads to the Senate. Joining us this morning, Congressman Adam Smith from Washington. He serves as chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, it's a pleasure to see you. With this call between President Biden and the Chinese leader going on as we speak, what do you want the president to tell Jinping?
Well, I want him to put as much pressure as possible on China to make sure that they don't help Russia. I mean, China really doesn't know what to do right now. They did not expect this invasion. Putin was not honest with them about his intentions. They certainly want to maintain a strong relationship with Russia because they see Russia as being on their side in terms of wanting to weaken us, basically. But right now, Putin is committing war crimes in Ukraine. He is devastating civilian populations. I think President Biden needs to make it clear to President Xi, this is a choice. So you're on the right side or the wrong side, and the rest of the world will judge China on this. China's trying to spread influence. They will not, they will not be able to do that if they're seen as letting Putin get away with this type of a crime.
And if they are seen as helping Putin, what is it that the West, specifically the United States, could or should do vis-a-vis China?
That's a very complicated question. Certainly, there's tariffs we could impose. We could try to get allies to rally against them in a variety of different ways. But up front, I think President Biden's taken the right approach. Let's try to get China to do the right thing without having to, get into a broader conflict with them. So that's the approach to take, because I think the best thing we can do right now is shine a light on what's happening in Ukraine, which obviously is being done, but also expose China and make them take a clear stand on this. So I think this call is very well timed and a good move by the president.
And I want to talk about this bill, the cutting normal trade ties with Russia and Belarus. How effective or significant is this?
It's significant. It's not as significant as the banking sanctions that we have imposed, as cutting off the supply of Russian oil. But it is another brick in the layer of undermining Russia's economy and weakening Putin. I mean, that's the key. We have to raise the costs as high as possible for Putin to continue his attack on Ukraine, to force him to start making different decisions, to see his interests differently. The higher the cost, the more likely it is that Putin and those around him will try to find a different path and stop the violent attack that they're currently engaged in.
Just wondering, what is the possible outcome of this for Putin? I mean, how do you see it? What are the options that he has going forward?
It's really difficult. This has not gone the way he expected. He is bogged down in a terrible situation with international condemnation, economy being undermined, not being successful on the battlefield. I think he's got to rethink what those aims were. I mean, keep in mind when this thing started, his aim basically was to make Ukraine a vassal state or to simply absorb it into Russia. I think he now knows that's not going to happen. We've got some reporting that he's back to, well, let's just, make the two eastern provinces independent, codify our control of Crimea. So he's sort of backing down on what the expectation was. As far as what he would ultimately settle for, I don't know. But I do know this. He can't succeed in Ukraine. Ukraine must continue to be an independent, democratic state, and that is what we have to make sure we help them in every way we can to maintain that. And like I said, force Putin to make a different decision than the one he made when he decided to invade.
Carson, what's the lesson here for how the United States or the world should deal with authoritarian or totalitarian dictators?
Well, I think there's two lessons. I mean, number one, we shouldn't kid ourselves. It's difficult. We don't want conflict. We don't want war. And authoritarians and dictators don't care. They will push as hard as they can because they're not as afraid of conflict, or they're more willing to engage in conflict than we are. But the second lesson is alliances matter. No country can do this alone. And I think that's one of the great strengths of what President Biden is doing. Imagine where we'd be if we had pulled out of NATO, as was rumored that Donald Trump wanted us to do. There's strength in numbers, there's strength in support. We need to build alliances, certainly in Europe, but across the world. We're working very closely with Japan and South Korea and India and Australia and others. There's strengths in numbers. The alliances are absolutely crucial. If you're going to stand up to this type of brutality, you need as much of the world with you as possible. And that's, I think, the philosophy President Biden has had his entire career, but certainly as president, that pays off, and that really helps.